In one episode of The Brady Bunch, Marcia Brady can only get through her speech to an auditorium of people when she imagines them all in their underwear. And I thought that might be a good idea for me tonight, to get through this. The second to last thing I want to be doing tonight is speaking to you. The last thing would be to stand in front of you in my underwear, which is a bit what it seems like to me. There are many ways to tell one's story, and what we leave out can be as important as what we include. One way I could tell my story is to see life as a series of denial boxes, and the chapters would be describing the opening of those boxes until, when I'm dying, I can say I've opened all of the denial boxes. My husband moved twice for me, then we moved twice for him, landing in Virginia about 14 years ago. I remember thinking, that's the South. Like it was another planet altogether. I hadn't spent any time in the South. I forged my identity as more of a northerner. Maryland, D.C., Rhode Island, summers at Cape Cod. It wasn't until August 12th of 2017, here, that I remembered a part of my past that I had forgotten. When I returned home from that day in Charlottesville, and my husband wanted to know why I was so adamant about going. And I ended up writing a little essay to myself. This is what I wrote. I called it Why I Showed Up. In my blood runs the complexity common to many Americans. I come by way of Italian, German, English, and Irish immigrants. There's some French mingled in too. Actually, I was talking to my grandmother, who's still alive, 96 years old, 95, 96. She was telling me in D.C., as a full-blooded Italian Catholic, when she was little, she saw at night the KKK burning a cross, and she thought that maybe her family was next. She told me stories of being poor and being Italian and what that meant for her. My dad's people were a lot of Irish Catholics, forging their way with little means. My maternal grandfather was the WASP of the family, Protestant and proper in every way. My kids are half Turkish. My husband's parents came to the United States in the late 60s. One day during my adolescence, I asked my Protestant grandfather questions about our ancestry. And he brought out this scroll-like document and he unrolled it. It belonged to one of our ancestors from Maryland. More precisely, the document called itself Joseph Harding's Inventory of Goods and Chattel, dated 1779. It listed goods such as a Dutch oven, rifles, blankets, and livestock, with detailed descriptions of each, written in this very hard-to-read cursive. Then my unsuspecting eyes moved to the bottom of the page to find the names of people, with significantly less description. One Negro male, Anthony, 28 years old. One Negro man, Walter, 20 years old. One Negro lad, Bennett, 15 years old. One Negro wench, Sook, 25 years old. One Negro boy, Charles, 6 years old. One Negro boy, Harry, 4 years old. One mulatto boy, 9 years old. One Negro wench, 60 years old. The list resumes with a few more items, presumably the goods used by those listed. On the far side of the document, beside every inventoried entry, was a value. The value beside Anthony was 45. The value beside Walter was 50. The value beside Bennett was 45. The value beside Sook was 40. The value beside Charles was 25. The value beside Harry was 18. The value beside the unnamed mulatto boy was 15. The value beside the unnamed 60-year-old woman, 3. Disoriented and incredulous about what I was reading, I looked up the page to decipher hard-to-read script, and I could make out the description of a horse, valued at 37. I attended the interfaith worship service at St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Charlottesville on the evening of Friday, August 11th, 2017. People gathered in light and love to celebrate what unites and binds us as Americans. A pastor friend leaned over to me near the end of the service to show me her phone. She got word that over 200 people were outside the church with torches. Soon after the benediction, we were told to stay put. The church was in lockdown. On Saturday, when taking to the streets arm in arm with friends and strangers, singing "This Little Light of Mine," "We Shall Overcome," I wasn't there only as a clergywoman. I showed up because I am responsible as a human being for correcting what's wrong. I am responsible for reclaiming space contaminated by hate and beliefs that harm. Mine was also a presence of penance for that which I've inherited and still struggle to face. On August 12th in Charlottesville, I witnessed viciousness in the eyes of my fellow Americans. Hate in aggregate, armed. I saw Americans outfitted as militia with armor meant for war. I saw women bloodied by men who threw them to the ground and bashed their heads into the pavement. And I must claim my own culpability in benefiting without protest from an unjust history that continues to abide in the present moment. We are trying to form a more perfect union as Americans. We do so by remembering our past without whitewashed nostalgia. I am remembering Anthony, Walter, Bennett, Sook, Charles, Harry, mulatto boy, and a 60-year-old woman who didn't get named in an inventory. I marched and I sang and I showed up for them and for those they loved and their stories that didn't get recorded. It's the least I could do. As a Christian, I also showed up for Jews. Jews taught me about tikkun olam, world repair. We are to repair the world. We participate in tikkun olam through acts of kindness by protecting those at a disadvantage. Too many of my Christian predecessors failed our Jewish brothers and sisters throughout history, hurt them, killed them. Then we used our sacred texts to justify or ignore the Holocaust. I am responsible as a pastor to say so. When I look back at the past and I wonder how I would have responded, I wonder how I would have responded in times that called for risky intervention for the defense of those who needed defending. Would I have defended the Armenian? Would I have protected the Gypsy? Would I have stood up for the Jews? Our current climate gives us a chance to test the question, how would I have responded? It is our time to respond.